All right, Nikki, we're going live, so you can do it now. Going live, so you can do it now. Give me a thumbs up.
That fucking Instagram beefcake.
Outside, just like I like it.
That's a pretty big fish to fry. That's a pretty big fish to fry. My, oh, my. My. That's a pretty big fish to fry. That's a pretty big fish to fry. My, oh, my. Last weekend I barely thought I'd make it out alive. Told myself I'd take some time and give the world a try. I wasn't alive. My, oh, my.
Oh, everybody. It is Tuesday, September the 26th. You're checking out the premier sports and beer podcast coming to you from New Jersey. It's Low and Outside. You can check us out, lowandoutside.com. There's all sorts of fun content that gets uploaded there every week. My name is Jeff. I am joined this week by a small panel of gentlemen, and I use that term loosely. So let's find out who we are talking to tonight.
Why don't you go back home to your street malls and drink your Zimas and Smirnoff Ices? Oh yeah! The greatest beer in all Zephyr!
Somebody from the bar.
Yeah, I like cool beverage, yeah. I like cool beverage, yeah. I like cool beverage, yeah. Cause I'm feeling kind of parched. Stick it in the fridge, stick it in the fridge, stick it in the fridge.
So tonight I'm drinking something that I think Anthony would enjoy, who's joining us tonight, even though he doesn't drink when he joins us. I am drinking a Forgotten Boardwalk funnel cake beer.
Nice.
So let's go over to Montville. I think we're in Montville tonight. And
That's correct.
What do you got? Are you wetting your whistle with anything that's NA tonight?
I am wetting my whistle in my Jets cup. I got this cup again just for Nick this week. And I am drinking a Arizona Arnold Palmer from 1914, and
Right.
It's very good.
Nice. Okay. Nikki.
Of course, I got another Ballast Point Longfin. And since I have so many left, I'm drinking two tonight because it's one of those nights.
That sure sounds like it's one of those nights. All right. So this week in sports has been interesting. So we're going to lead off with this.
Who cares?
Now, we didn't talk at all on this show about any of this. So I'm going to lead with this because I'm tired of hearing about it. And anybody else that wants to say anything, you can say it now. And then I don't want to ever talk about it again on this show. I think that the whole national anthem bullshit that's going on in the National Football League falls directly into the who cares category. I'm tired of seeing it. I'm tired of it being an issue. I'm tired of the president coming out and making it a red herring for, to throw the scent off of bigger things that are going on in this country. And I'm tired of the idiots that consume the National Football League buying into it. I don't want to see it. I'm done with it. I read a great article that Sean had sent me today about college football and how there's no politics in college football right now. And it's a great place to get your football fix if you're tired of hearing about all the crap. My big takeaway from all of this national anthem stuff, and I'm not saying that one side is right or one side is wrong, but my entire takeaway on the entire thing
Who cares?
is who cares. Either of you have an opinion.
Yeah, I'll check in on that. I mean, for me, I've said my opinion on this all over the place to the point that I'm also sick about hearing about it.
Yeah.
But one thing that changed last night was the way the Dallas Cowboys handled that issue. They took a knee in solidarity and unity for the message, and then they stood up for the national anthem. And to me, that's been the best part and the most impressive thing thus far, because I'm one of those people who agrees with the cause but doesn't agree with actually doing it during the national anthem. So kudos to Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys for handling it that way, but I am also completely tired of this issue.
Okay. Nick, do you have an opinion?
Just one thing. You talked about, the president chiming in on this. Everyone's kind of getting their opinion on the national anthem. And I saw a report that said that I think almost 2/3 of Americans don't even realize that Puerto Ricans are American citizens. And they are failing to realize that, that part of our country has been underwater without electricity or power and water. And everyone's kind of ignoring them when we should be helping a hand to our fellow citizens down there.
Yeah. So, like I said, sports I think is an escape from all the bullshit. So I really don't want to discuss it any further.
Who cares?
Let's go to the National Basketball Association. This is like the worst kept secret that's existed for months now. The Bulls and Dwayne Wade agreed to a buyout. I believe last I checked, he left $8 million on the table to be bought out from Chicago, which is just a dumpster fire right now. I mean, they're completely turning over their entire roster, their entire franchise, which is probably the right move, but not a great place for a veteran at the tail end of his career to be wasting away. Sources, the all-important sources, when you put them in quotes.
Anonymous.
Yeah, have him going to Cleveland. Do either of you see any reason why we should pay attention to this? First of all, I guess, do you think that Dwayne Wade is relevant anymore?
He's definitely relevant. I mean, he's going to be relevant when LeBron's passing him the ball, the best passer in the league. I just think that it's funny that you're talking about the Bulls kind of unleveling their roster when they were kind of all in last year with Rondo and Jimmy Butler and Wade, and that kind of just blew up in their face. And then they realized, wow, this is not the way we should be going, kind of like what the Knicks have done.
So you see him going to Cleveland, though. You see, like, that's a done deal. There's no way he goes anywhere else.
I think that's the best spot for him.
Okay. Ant, do you see it any other way, or is that how you see it?
I think Cleveland is the best spot for him. Is Dwayne Wade like a really relevant player at this point in his career? As a starter, no, but I think he could be a great leader of the second unit for that team. I think he can provide value. So I can see, their reasoning for signing him.
Well, actually, it came out 2 hours ago. He reportedly agreed to a 1-year, $2.3 million contract with Cleveland, which is, I think the way that works is the salary that he was set to make in Chicago, he still gets paid.
Yes.
Minus whatever that salary is that he signed. So he'll get paid the 20-something million from Chicago, and then he'll just get paid another 2.3 from Cleveland.
Yeah, that's the agreed upon contract, but it's also contingent on him clearing waivers tomorrow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's got to clear waivers. Someone can claim him.
So if somebody claims him, they owe him that whole.
I think the whole boatload of it.
I'd love to see the Knicks claim him just because.
So the Knicks could claim him technically and have to pay him like $2 million or something, but they could happen.
I didn't.
It's such a Dolan move.
I didn't see what the incoming money was on the Melo deal. We're gonna get to the Melo deal later tonight, but I didn't see what the incoming money was. So they actually might not be able to claim. They might not have the cap space. But it would be hysterical if a team like Philadelphia that has the cap space is just like, no, we're good. We'll take D Wade for the year. Thanks. Then he's got to go play in like freaking middle of Philadelphia. That'd be great. Just a quick note of D Wade's stats last year. He played 30 minutes a game, averaged 18.3 points, 4.5 rebounds, and just shy of 4 assists a game. So those numbers are down obviously from his career numbers. But if you can get 30 minutes out of D Wade and 18 points a night, I think any team in the league would probably take that. No.
Yeah, it's a huge win, especially for Cleveland, who is going to need, someone to sub in and out for the guys that they have. Also you're assuming that Isaiah Thomas is going to be healthy at the start of the year. So if he's not, you got a guy to fill in. And when Isaiah's there, you got the guy who can rotate in and out and run the floor and put points on the board.
I kind of saw him as a potential fit in Chicago too, though. I mean, not in Chicago, in Houston. Like, I was surprised that there was no talk at all of him going to Houston and joining Chris Paul and Harden out there. I thought he could have been an interesting fit there. And then with Melo going to Oklahoma City with George, I mean, that would have been an interesting fit for him too. So I'm kind of surprised that neither of the other Banana Boat brothers got any kind of love on the whole thing.
No, I don't think that works because the reason that they didn't work in Chicago was because Butler, Rondo, and Wade all kind of have 3 big egos, and they just didn't mesh well together. So I think if he went to Oklahoma City with Melo, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook, that would have been a disaster. I just think he works well with LeBron because they have that kind of chemistry, and he's not going to be the superstar. He knows LeBron runs the show, and I think they're going to work a little bit better than in other places.
So it's in the who cares category simply because of the whole, I love the whole sources have him linked thing. Like, so that to me is why I put it there. But I think it's interesting if you look at, if he does end up in Cleveland, you're then looking at a roster that's got LeBron and D Wade, right? Who were clearly the 2 biggest pieces from those Miami titles, right? So you got LeBron and D Wade, but then you've got Kevin Love, who really has kind of been subpar as far as his career since he's become the Cleveland. He's kind of taken a little bit of a dive. But then, you forget you got Isaiah Thomas, who may come back probably in December.
Like Christmas, yeah.
Form. But then you've also got Derrick Rose on that team. So, like, if you get Isaiah back and you are able to sit LeBron down and sit Kevin Love down and run an offense through Derrick Rose and Dwayne Wade, like, that's a big deal. That's a big deal to be able to sit some of your big guys down and still have that offensive firepower if you're not expecting them to play, 38 minutes a game. I think both of those guys can do some damage.
I hesitate on that only because, Derrick Rose is modern day version of Mr. Glass. The guy cannot stay healthy. So if you're looking at him playing any more than 25 games, I'd be impressed.
Yeah, he played more than 25 last year for that horrible Knick team. They were bad.
He averaged about 18 points, I think, right?
I think he was lost in the shuffle last year just because of the ridiculous nature of that franchise. He had a
and his disappearing act.
Well, that's an independent, situation. But as far as his ability goes, I still think he's capable. He's not going to be the guy on that team. They're never going to. He's not even going to be the number 2 guy on that team. He came to New York and he was immediately, they wanted to run everything through him. That's not the way it's going to be in Cleveland at all. Even if he's on the floor, it's not going to run through him. It's going to run through LeBron.
Yeah, but hold on. Let's look at why this is happening, right? Why is this happening with the Cavs? It's because the problem has been LeBron runs out of gas towards the end of the year and it's just beat up. I think they're trying to get these veteran guys in there that have experience so that maybe you can sit LeBron for a few more minutes every night and you kind of don't lose all that kind of momentum every single game. I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly why they're doing it. I think I think it makes total sense. The interesting thing will be, can they actually compete with, the West? Because I think this movie, with Wade going there, I think they're first of all, I thought when they did that trade, when they sent Kyrie to Boston, I think that they became a better team than Boston. I don't know why Boston did the deal.
I agree.
I think Cleveland's a better team, but I think that if you add Wade, it adds a different dimension to that finals matchup with Golden State, if that's who it is, or if for some act of God, Oklahoma City gets by them. I really can't see that happening, though.
I think it puts a ton of pressure on Golden State when you get past the first unit. You're going to talk about a totally dominant bench on the side of the Cavs. Will it be enough to overcome what Golden State puts on the floor for most of the game? I don't know, but it makes them a much better team. I agree.
Do you think they'll play Wade off the bench? Because I don't think they will. I think he may. I think he'll start, but he may see more second team reps once they're in the flow of the game. But I think he'll start.
I think he'll start at first, and then we'll see whether he or Rose, one of those guys, will probably pop a seat on the bench once Isaiah starts to get himself back and ready to start. So I think he'll start probably through the new year, and then I think you'll start seeing him come off the bench. But then again, if the chemistry's working, why change it?
The interesting thing is, right, coming, and Nick, you can't really speak to this because you're a Nets fan, so you didn't have to deal with this clown. But the interesting thing is you're basically looking at a roster where the Cavs were set to start J.R. Smith this year. And instead of J.R. Smith starting, he can come off of your bench and Dwayne Wade can slide into his spot. Listen, if you had told me when J.R. Smith was on the Knicks that we would have gotten Dwayne Wade to slide in there and J.R. would have played less minutes, I would have signed up for that. I would have. I think it's a good move, and I think it may prolong D Wade's career, but I don't know how long they're all going to stay there because LeBron's got an out after this year. It's a 1-year deal for Wade, 1-year deal for Rose. So if you're
it's probably all contingent on what happens this year.
If you're Cleveland, and it's 1-year deal for Isaiah too. So legitimately, this entire roster could turn over at the end of the year. So
I think that's exactly what you're going to see. Stephen A. Smith's been reporting for weeks now that Chris Paul, Carmelo, LeBron, and Dwayne Wade were going to end up on the same team next year, and that it was going to either be New York or the Lakers. I think with Melo leaving New York, that knocks New York out of the picture. So to me, if what he's saying is correct and he does have a great inside track, you might see all those guys playing for the Lakers next year.
It'd be weird. And it might be too late from my perspective. It might be too late for that to actually matter.
Well, you put those guys together and then you've got some of the younger talent the Lakers have and the picks that they'll have going into the year, and you might see something. Will it be better than Golden State? No, probably not because these guys are old. But
to be fair, they'll have Lonzo Ball, so that'll probably push them over the edge.
Who cares?
This one broke today, which I thought was an interesting take. I don't know if you guys know this, but the NCAA basketball it's crooked.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew, and I know this one.
Don't say.
This one might hit a little bit close to you, Amp, because you do have to work within the confines of the NCAA. But essentially, there were two sets of charges brought against several coaches. The first group of charges, the United States attorneys alleging that the assistant coaches at Arizona, Auburn, Oklahoma State, and USC took cash bribes in order to steer elite basketball players towards certain financial advisors and sports agents. They named the actual guys, so those guys are in some serious shit. And the second set of allegations, they say that James Gatto, on behalf of a unnamed, quote, sportswear company, funneled 6-figure payments to 3 players who in exchange committed to play for particular college programs affiliated with the company. Gatto is the director of global sports marketing for Adidas, and the tie is to Louisville. It just doesn't get much dirtier than any of that, man. There's not really anything that I can say.
Dirtier than Rick Pitino bringing in hookers for his recruits?
Same program.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Rick Pitino ousted within 2 weeks' time.
What a dickhead he is.
The thing that I was hearing today is that these teams are making 6-figure payments to these guys just so they can get them on a 1-year rental. And as soon as they go off to the NBA, they play a few years and they funnel that cash back into the college. And it is a horrible way to do business. But unfortunately, this is a very real issue both in football and basketball at the NCAA level. And it's something that well, I'm glad to see that, there's awareness being brought to it because, we run a very clean program where I am, and we're very proud of that. And to see some of these bigger colleges, pull these things off, they steal athletes. And it's something that, I hope to see a stop put to it, but I just don't think that you can stop the money train.
So I'm not going to ask you to name names because I don't think that's fair to you, and I don't think it's fair to, the institution that writes your checks. But you do coach a sport that doesn't have the same spotlight on it than basketball and football does.
That's correct. I mean, when it comes to track and field, you're talking about a non-fully funded program,
right?
So we're dishing out little bits and pieces of scholarship money.
But so my question is and again, you're proud of the way that your program runs, but on a smaller scale, is that type of stuff happening in sports like yours or other sports that are in a similar financial situation?
I would say that you see it in football and basketball. I really would hesitate to think that maybe you'd see it in other places. You do have fully funded programs across the country, like wrestling, that might do something like that. But if the idea is for the university to get kicked back by the athlete once they advance past that first year one and done, or college football 3 years and done, you're going to be hard pressed to do that with an athlete in any other sport because they're just not going to make that kind of money.
Even with like endorsement deals? Because I know that especially in your area, there's a ton of money to be made with some of these apparel companies and some of these endorsement deals that you can make versus, what you're going to get when you go running worlds or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the thing about the endorsement deals in track and field is that they're nowhere near what you would see in another sport. So you've got, Ryan Krauser, who's the Olympic champion and Olympic record holder from this past Olympics in the shot put. Here's a guy who's under sponsorship by Nike, and his sponsorship for the year is like $150,000. So it's nowhere near what you would see of a multi-million-dollar contract. Now, Adidas did dish out $1 million to Aji Wilson when she just passed on her scholarship to Florida State. She's a distance runner from New Jersey. So in that aspect, it actually happens a little more in track and field from the young kids' perspective. They skip college, they go off to compete. And part of their contract is that, Adidas or Nike or whoever sponsors them then writes it in their contract. They'll pay for them to go back to school afterwards. But these guys are never actually competing on the collegiate level. So it's a little different.
Right. So maybe you misunderstood my question. So my question isn't, is it going on at the same scale? Is it going on at a smaller scale that's comparable to what the revenue stream would be? So you're not going to get a 6-figure check written to a kid in track and fields, but would you get here's a check and we're going to cover your tuition, even though we don't have the scholarship? Is that happening in some of these big time programs that you would think that maybe they have an advantage over some of these smaller programs?
I could see it happening just because of the amount of athletes that are coming from overseas. When you're bringing in a lot of foreign athletes, I could see things like that happening. A little harder to track, maybe. So I could see it being that way in my sport, sure.
Nick, is there a fix? Like, is there a way to get around? I mean, forget about football and basketball. Just the great landscape of the entire thing. Is there a fix around these guys, these coaches, these agents trying to get this upper hand to steer these young men and women in a specific direction with cash?
I don't know. I mean, it's a very gray area. I mean, I would suggest especially for basketball and football and two sports that generate so much revenue for schools and stuff, that maybe you just pay the athletes, pay them on a basis based on the revenue that the schools generate, so that maybe it kind of weeds out some of those kind of, behind the door kind of deals. Maybe if there's cash up front that everyone knows about, there's not as much chance for people to kind of take $10,000 here for a deal. I don't know.
So obviously that would have to be hashed out, very intensely. You'd have to have tiers and this, that, and the other thing. But
right.
Your thought is by paying them, some of this bullshit goes away.
I think it might help, but again, you never know until it happens. So I think unfortunately, you'd have to do it to find out. But who knows? It's very complicated.
As somebody that coaches at the collegiate level, do you see that could be the direction that they head? I mean, there's been
I see
about it.
I see it being impossible. Only because you're talking about if you're doing it for one sport, you've got to do it for all sports. Then you're breaking down the revenue stream.
Answer me why. Why if you do it for football and men's basketball, obviously there's no women's football and men's basketball, why would you have to do it for swimming?
But you've got to remember that there are rules in place that you've got to treat all the sports in both genders equally.
Okay, but there's also
but it's got to be based on revenue streaming, no?
There's also rules that you don't pay athletes now. So clearly you're talking about rewriting the entire rule book.
Okay, so if you're going to start from scratch, then that's a different question. If you're going to start from scratch, then yeah, I think it's possible. The problem is that these kids and a lot of these news reporters forget these athletes are getting paid. They're getting a $300,000 scholarship to go to college. So now,
no. They generate so much freaking money for those schools. You have no idea with the TV deals and the advertisements. They're getting paid, a penny on a dollar. It's ridiculous.
You're talking about a fully funded college program that is giving out, 40 full ride scholarships a year. There's no way that money.
Not for basketball.
Not for basketball. You got far less.
For basketball,
I just don't think it correlates.
So here's my other question for you, guys. I'm gonna flip the script a little bit. If you pay the players, now the players become employees. So now let's say you pay the player $400,000 for 4 years to go to college, $100,000 a year. They're going to have to pay income tax on that money, and the school's going to have to pay FICA tax on that money, and it's going to cost them far more than ever. So you're talking about then you're increasing your cost of what the scholarship was going to cost you probably by upwards of 25%, and the athlete is only going to get, call it 65% of that money, and then they have to pay to go to college.
But they don't have to pay to go to college.
No, but it would if you're giving them, like, let's say hypothetically it's $300,000 to go to a school for 4 years.
Okay.
If they're paying them $300,000, they're only going to net $190 of that, and they got to pay the rest.
Yeah, but if they're paying them $300,000, they're also giving them a free ride.
Right, but now if they're paid, they're employees. They've got to pay payroll taxes on that $300,000.
I understand that, but the point of the matter is, instead of doing these fugazi backroom deals where Johnny Thick Palms is handing out $100 bills at every one of these buffet dinners that they're holding, it's legitimate. It becomes something that everybody's on the same playing field. You set a pay scale. Everybody pays their guy this.
On top of the scholarship is what you're saying.
On top of the scholarship.
Okay, that makes it different.
Yeah, I'm not saying you got to pay these quarterbacks, $10 million. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you got to, like Jeff's saying, you make a scale where, based on the income of what you're given from the school, the TV deals, you're going to pay out these players a respectable amount of money, so that at least it's up front and it's out in the open. Everyone can see what they're making. It's not. I think that would kind of weed out these kind of schemy guys in the background. I don't know. I think it would.
But sooner or later, and this is more in basketball than in football, you're going to have a guy like LeBron James come along again, and he's going to go to Kentucky, and he's going to want $10 million. And Kentucky's going to want that revenue, and they might just give it to him. And then, just like how salaries increase in every other sport, all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose.
Well, that's where the NCAA would actually have to grow a set and do what a lot of union contracts do, is they set a salary guide, and they
let's talk about like the NFL's rookie wage scale.
And they say this is it. It doesn't matter if you're LeBron and you want to go play for Calipari, or if you're the 10th guy on the basketball roster. This is what you're making. You get your $100,000 a year plus your education. So if you stay for 4 years and you don't play as an NBA player, not only are you getting a free ride, but you have $400,000 before taxes in your pocket.
But now let me ask you this though. So now you've got LeBron. Okay, you've got LeBron 2.0, and he's coming through, and he can either go into the draft and come out and make millions of dollars, or go to the school. If you don't have this rookie wage scale in place, then you've got a chance to get the guy in the college system for a year. If you do, you got no chance of bringing that guy in.
Well, you'd have to, because the NBA has the rule that they would have to go to college for the year.
So for 1 year, they could get him in one and done.
But that's what they're doing now. It's no different than what they're doing now, except for that you would legitimize how these guys are getting paid instead, and avoid 6 freaking college coaches. Let's name them. You got Arizona, Auburn, Oklahoma State, and USA. You got 4 major Division I college basketball programs where assistant coaches are going to go to fucking jail because they broke the law. So, like, obviously, there's always going to be people that are underhanded and don't do the right thing. I get that you're never going to avoid that. But the reason why this stuff is happening right now is because there's too much money on the table, and the people that are actually working for it aren't seeing any of it. So it's easy to throw a 6-figure payment at 3 players because they've never seen any money like that before in their life. At a certain point, I'm not forgiving what these scumbags did. What they did is terrible. But at a certain point, like, this is preventable. And the NCAA doesn't prevent it by doing what they can do. And they take a long time to see this. They still haven't ruled on the North Carolina bullshit that there were classes that some of their athletes were taking that didn't exist, they didn't go to. That's, God forbid we make a ruling on that. It takes too long to do that. But if a coach buys a kid a blazer to go home to his grandfather's funeral, he gets the book thrown at him. I mean, come on. Like, what are we doing? There's no common sense at all with this organization when it comes to this stuff. Somebody that's not in the NCAA right now needs to come in there and take a hard look at how they do business and help them change it.
Well, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the North Carolina thing versus, there's a situation that I don't remember the school, but there's a girl volleyball player who was washing her car behind the student center. And the NCAA came down on the school as giving this kid an extra benefit because she was using a hose that was attached to the school building.
Right.
I mean, if that's what the NCAA is going to come down on, as opposed to the real issues, then the NCAA really needs a redo. They need reconstruction in the worst way.
Yeah, just close up shop. Just start over. Because what are we doing? But this is why people get frustrated with the NCAA, because this type of bullshit happens all the time. And now, notice the NCAA is not punishing these guys. This isn't an NCAA thing. It's the FBI. So you can't tell me that the NCAA had no knowledge that any of this stuff was going on. They look the other way. Because they're not gonna punish USC. They're not gonna punish Louisville.
Well, and I also think that if you think it's just these 4 schools, you are sadly mistaken.
That's my point. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy that this stuff goes on. It's in the Who Cares segment, because if you didn't think it was going on and this is a total surprise to you, you should be taken out back. And I got a bridge I can sell you in Brooklyn for $5. I mean, it's crazy. It's just like, enough is enough.
Who cares?
National Football League. I don't know if you know this, Ant. Yesterday was the end of the football week, but the day before that, the Dolphins came to town and played the New York Jets at MetLife Stadium. I didn't see all the game. Nick, did you catch the entire game?
I only saw maybe 90% of it.
Well, I got news for you. If you saw about 10% of it, you saw enough, because you guys, your boys, basically didn't get off the bus.
Yeah, they didn't show up. They got their ass kicked. I'll own it. They got their ass kicked. It was one of those games, an away game against a division opponent. Anything can happen, but I didn't expect it to be that bad. I thought the Jets would keep it close, but I thought we would kind of squeak one out. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's one game. I mean, it sucked. It did suck, but at the end of the day, it's still one game. So whatever. I'll hold out hope for now.
Well, I'm sitting next to you
until they do it again next week.
Sitting next to you in the stadium. And before we went in, we're talking to this like retired Dolphins fan from Tom's River, and he's like, he's wearing, he was rocking his Marino jersey like they all do. And he was like telling us all about this awesome trip that he's taking. They're going to go down to Atlanta and they got a tour of the stadium and they're going to do this. And then they're going to go to Key West and he's going to come back and watch the Jet Dolphin game, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just looking at him. I'm like, man, like you're spending a ton of money on a really mediocre football team. Like you live in Toms River, New Jersey, and you're going to fly down to Atlanta and then drive down to Key West and then double back. Like you're going to catch 2 football games in 2 cities that you don't live in. Like, good God bless you.
Well, you've got idiots like that who think that the Dolphins are going to win 9 or 10 games this year, right, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, did I not say before the season that everyone, the Jets 0-16, 0-6? I said they're not going to be that bad. Watch, they're not going to be that bad because no one knows what to expect. The first week against the Bills, they kept it close. They lost at the end. Against the Raiders, it was 14-10 in the second quarter. They lost at the end. Then last week they kicked their ass. You never know what's going to happen with these teams. It's just any given Sunday.
The problem is,
I just can't.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was gonna say the problem is realistically, I want the Jets to be worse than they are. I mean, when you look at a couple of the, 2 out of these 3 games, like that Buffalo game, if they played Buffalo last week, they would have beaten them. The way that they played against Miami, they wouldn't have beaten Oakland. But if the Jets string a couple of games like that, like they got Jacksonville coming to town this week, who beat the hell out of Baltimore, but that Jacksonville's not a terrific football team. And then they got Cleveland. It's not unreasonable that after those 2 games that they tack on another 2 wins and that they're above 500 going into.
Or at least if they just win one of those games, they're 2-3 and sitting at like a respectable record.
It's not. It's not. And listen, Anthony, you and I, there's nobody in the world that wants this team to blow up more than you and I do, because we want to have a good draft pick and try to get somebody in there that can stabilize the whole thing. This is not the worst team in the league. It's just not.
It amazes me how coming into the season, looking at the roster we had and the preseason we had, that this team has looked as good as it has. It makes me really frustrated because now I have to sit there and look through the possibility that I wrote about in the preseason, the way that they're going to lose this top overall pick, and I'm seeing it come to fruition. I watched a horrible Miami Dolphins team just get smoked. I mean, they got waxed by the Jets. That touchdown at the end was completely meaningless, but what I saw that I liked, and this is what we were hoping for all along, was development of young guys. I saw Jamal Adams become a player, and this kid is going to be phenomenal. But what I wanted was for my quarterback to throw 9 picks and have us lose the game.
No. But wait, but you're saying like you want the Jets to be bad, and you're surprised they won. You're gonna make all the jokes you want. The Dolphins are not like an awful team. You might not say they're good, but they're not an awful team. The Jets beat a somewhat average team. It's not like the Dolphins are bad.
I think
they beat up a decent team.
I think it's too early to tell what the Dolphins are because you didn't have that first week.
As bad as you want them to be.
No, I think you're right.
I thought the Fish were going to be at least decent. I thought, the running back was going to run all over the Jets because that's been the MO. My only concern entering this game was the real Jay Cutler going to show up? So not only did we get the real Jay Cutler, we got the best version of the Jets defense. And that recipe was a complete and utter destruction of the Dolphins. And it made me sick to watch because I was hoping to see a good Dolphins team beat my guys because I want the top overall pick.
The worst part about it, though, realistically, we didn't see the worst Jay Cutler.
No,
that wasn't the worst Jay Cutler. Yeah, the worst Jay Cutler is throwing 4 picks. He threw a garbage time interception at the end, but he didn't turn the ball over. He just didn't make any throws. That's just because the Jets defense was good. They were good.
Balls in the dirt. I mean, he was throwing behind guys. He was throwing he was skipping the ball to guys. He looked like the guy that came off the couch. Is what he looked like. He didn't look like he had any work whatsoever with this team. Now you had told me that a couple guys didn't practice this week.
Yeah, they missed Devontae Parker, Landry, and Ajayi all missed practice. So when you have a quarterback that doesn't have any chemistry with his players and they don't practice all week, you can't just show up on the road Sunday against a division rival and just play. It doesn't work like that.
If you had signed Mark Sanchez, you wouldn't have this problem.
Oh, yeah, because Mark Sanchez has so much chemistry. Yeah, shut up. Yeah, I can't wait for you guys to draft that next USC quarterback, and then in 5 years they're complaining about how much he sucks.
The difference was Sanchez only started 12 games in college.
I don't know if you know this, but I took a picture with the next Jet quarterback. He was wearing Baker Mayfield was walking around in MetLife Stadium with a Jet jersey on. It was bonkers.
But I have a question, Jeff. You guys, you want Baker Mayfield, right, Jeff?
I do. I don't think
if things stay the same, right? Baker Mayfield is not going to go number 1 overall.
Right.
He's not the prototypical guy. So if the Jets wind up having a somewhat decent year, maybe they finish like 5-11 or 6-10, and they have like the 7th or 8th pick, Baker Mayfield's still going to be there, I think.
If they have the 7th or 8th pick, they're not going to draft the quarterback.
I agree.
If they have the 7th or 8th pick, they'll trade back and they'll draft 2 linemen.
2 defensive linemen.
And 2 offensive linemen. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing. I think that's probably the right move. If they fall in somewhere between 6 and 10,
like no man's land.
Yeah, I think your better move is to either trade up and grab the quarterback, or you trade back and you pick up 2 first-round picks, and you try to do what you did when you built the offensive line that they had success with for a decade. I mean, that's just how you win the NFL. I mean, Yampo and I screamed about it all year last year. If you don't have an offensive line, you might as well not even show up on Sunday.
That's the truth. That's the truth. I mean, Miami had no offensive line last week. They couldn't move when you can't run the ball, when you have 16 rushing yards, I don't care who your receivers are, who your quarterback is, it doesn't matter. You're not going to do anything.
Yeah, the Giants are experiencing that now.
Well, let's go to the Giants. Let's go to the Giants. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants' offensive line, Eric Flowers might be the worst starting lineman in the league, and that's saying something because the Jets' line sucks too. But to watch a guy like Eli Manning who cannot move, he's probably the only quarterback in the league slower than Tom Brady, and he's just getting his hat handed to him on a weekly basis, and they can't win games. And this is a team that everyone picked to go to the Super Bowl.
I did.
They can't get out of their own way.
I picked them to win it.
Well, they got a 3% chance now of making the playoffs.
It's not happening.
No, they're done.
Listen, I said this. I think I said it last week. If I didn't say it on the show, I've been saying it all week. As a Jet fan, my expectation was that my team was not going to be competitive. If I'm a Giant fan, I'm ready to jump out of a building. Like this is this is a team I thought was gonna contend for a title. If I'm a Giant fan, I wasn't the only one who said it. Giant fans were saying it.
The Giant fans are having a season like we normally would as Jet fans. Like we're coming to a season thinking we're going to win the Super Bowl, and we go like 3-13.
No. You guys never actually think that, though. The Giants actually think that.
No, there was a couple of years like back, in 1999, entering that season, or the second year of Sanchez when they went to the AFC title game again, where we were like, we're going to the Super Bowl. Now, granted, 1999 we were terrible. At least we went back to the AFC title game in Sanchez's second year, but his third year, we were god-awful. But the only difference between the Jets and the Giants from a history standpoint is that field goal in Philadelphia would have been 70 yards and good if it was against the Jets.
Well, let's talk about that. So a rookie kicker, right? He was a rookie kicker for the Eagles, right?
They just signed him. Their kicker just went on IR, and they just signed him off the street.
And he puts through, what was it, 61 yards? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Which is ridiculously impressive. Philadelphia, whether you like Philadelphia or not, that's not an easy place to play. Even if you're the home team, that's not an easy place to play.
No, yeah. And I give them credit. They came out to a good start, and they finished them off.
The 2 things I want to talk about, in addition to what you had said, Anthony, about the line, Odell Beckham Jr., he's not 100% still, I don't think. So you got to give him some credit for going out on the field and playing it all. But he scores a touchdown and he gets on all fours and lifts his knee like he's a dog taking a leak on a fire hydrant. And then he scores another touchdown and he stands up and raises the fist in the air, shades of the Black Panthers salute. Like, what am I looking at with this guy? If this is my team, like, I don't care who you are. Like, I'm getting rid of him.
You're looking at a ball player who cares about one thing, himself. Odell Beckham Jr. is the worst parts of Terrell Owens and Randy Moss in one player. This is a guy the Giants should absolutely not pay. He is a cancer, and his comments after the game said all you need to know. this is what I do. I'm going to keep doing it. Well, you know what? Take a walk then, because you are a cancer to this franchise.
Well, hold on. You're
I just think, Nick, because you're
Odell Beckham does not catch those 2 touchdowns.
Nick, you got cut off, so start over.
I'm saying you guys are both right, but let's hold on here, because if Odell Beckham doesn't catch those 2 ridiculous touchdowns in the end zone, the Giants have 1 touchdown maybe. I mean, this is the only way that they can score. They just – even last year, the Giants won like 3 games where Eli Manning threw a 5-yard slant and Beckham took it 70 yards to the house to win the game. Otherwise, they don't make the playoffs, and no one has any sort of aspirations for this year. He's like the saving grace of the offense, and it's a matter of if the Giants want to bite the bullet and take the antics if he's gonna produce, or if they want to get rid of him and have their offense be even worse. I don't know.
I don't disagree with you, but a good friend of mine, Matt Ciempa, he's a very accomplished high school wrestling coach out of Parsippany. He coaches kids that go to international competitions, kids that are competing at the absolute highest level. And one of the things that he and I talked about all the time when we worked together was as a coach of a team, you never take the short-term win for the long-term loss. And right now, since you go back to when Coughlin was the coach, the Giants have taken the short-term win with Odell Beckham Jr. at the expense of the long-term health of the franchise. He's no good. I don't care if he scores you 2 touchdowns a game. He's about him and the things that he says and the things that he does that cost his team. He can score 7 points or 6 points on a touchdown, and then he gets flagged, and immediately his team is penalized, and there's no accountability for it. So I'm not saying that he shouldn't be on the team, but somebody's got to get control over the guy. Somebody's got to look at him and say, listen, like, you're not pulling the rope in the same direction. It doesn't matter how talented you are. This is a team sport, and without everybody pulling the same direction, we're going to go nowhere except for put you on the cover of Madden. And that's all that he apparently gives a shit about. That's a problem, Nick.
The guy only cares about his brand. And you're talking about a situation where they can't hold him accountable. He's been praised for, saving Tom Coughlin's job the first time around. As far as the GM is concerned, he's the last pick that this guy made who has a chance to save his job, because he's going to be gone, in my opinion, at the end of this year. To me, Odell Beckham Jr. is a problem, because if you watch the Giants rookie tight end who caught the first touchdown of the year in week 2, what did he do? Grabbed his crotch, 15-yard penalty. This is a problem that now is spreading to other players on the team. And what does McAdoo do? He goes on TV and he says, things about Eli Manning and holding him accountable. Where is the accountability for Odell Beckham?
Right. So
you're right. You're right about that. You're right about that. The Giants, I'm going to sound stupid, they probably need a more disciplinarian coach, which was probably what Coughlin was, and they got rid of him. McAdoo is an X's and O's guy. I can't picture Ben McAdoo getting into the locker room and saying any sort of fiery speech or giving out any sort of discipline to his players, which is a problem because of what you guys are talking about right now. But at this point, when they're 0-3, they probably need to win like 4 straight games to get back into playoff contention. You need to win. And how do you win? You get it to your best players. Who's your best player? Odell Beckham.
But here's the problem with what you just said there in terms of McAdoo. He's an X's and O's coach, but he can't fix his offensive line. Right? His skill is supposed to be in putting offensive players in a position to succeed, but he cannot fix the problem that they created by putting a bad offensive line together. He refuses to make any kind of change to make it happen. So, look, I think the Giants are a stable franchise. They don't make knee-jerk reactions to and firing guys, but I think it's clear that the coach is clearly not in control of the situation here. So my question to the two of you is simple, and we'll start with Nick and we'll close with Anthony. If Odell Beckham Jr. was on your team and you were the team in this exact situation that the Giants are in, would you sign him to the richest contract for a wide receiver in football, Nick?
At this very moment, with the way that he's acting, no.
Anthony?
Absolutely not.
That's all you have to know, because his stats are absurd. His upside is massive. But 3 people here who are complete outsiders that have no skin in the game whatsoever are looking at you and saying, I wouldn't want this guy on my team because of the baggage that he brings. So it is what it is. It is what it is. The rest of the league, a lot of stuff went down. We're nearing the quarter mark, so we'll go over how the league has shaken out after the first quarter of the season comes and goes. So we'll talk about the Yankees really fast because we had said we were going to talk about baseball this week. They've clinched the wild card. They are the magic number to host that wild card game is 2. So some combination of Minnesota losing and the Yankees winning puts the Yankees in hosting that game. Now I realize that I'm talking to a Mets fan in Anthony that you've watched a very very large lead disappear in a very short amount of time. But I don't see any possible way that they're not going to host that wild card game. So is it fair that we can assume that game's going to be played in the Bronx?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
So the reason that I can go to you and have an objective answer to this is that you're not a Yankee guy. If you had a vote for the MVP right now, Aaron Judge just hit his 50th home run. So let's put the Rookie of the Year conversation to the side. If you had a vote for the MVP, would Aaron Judge get it?
It's really hard to deny him with what he's been able to do. Now, he had that huge low, after the All-Star break where, a historic slump. And the fact that he has still totaled the numbers that he has with that historic slump amazes me. Would I like to see the guy more consistent? Sure, but, if he was more consistent, this might be the best season in history.
He had the most home runs of the season in September.
Yeah.
So out of any month that he had this year, he hit the most home runs for his season were in September.
That's ridiculous.
He's getting hot at the right time.
Right. So
maybe he's developing that classic Yankee clutch gene that so many guys before him have had.
How great would that be?
As a Mets fan, terrible, but as a sports fan in New York, because I'm not a Yankee hater, part of me was upset when Derek Jeter played his last game, But so if this guy is that, I didn't cry. It was watching him.
Did you hug your pillow?
I didn't hug my pillow either, but I did scream out, yeah, when he hit that line shot that won the second to last game of the year. I was just in awe of a guy that put me in awe for a lot of years. My only hope for Aaron Judge is that he's doing it clean.
Yeah, well, we can't even necessarily approach that yet because he's given us no real reason to think that he isn't. But as you've said, and time and time again, everybody it seems like everybody in that sport is guilty until they're proven innocent.
You never know. All right, you never know. All right.
Over on the steroid use.
No, but talking about this wild card game, I think it's so important for them to win this wild card game. And for the reason only being that I think if players need to experience a playoff series. I think the one game is going to be cool, but I think they need to play at least 4 or 5 games in a series, even if they lose to Cleveland in 4 or 5 games, whatever. You got to get them that experience of the postseason so they can learn from that. And I think that's a big lesson that is valuable for them.
I'm telling you this: if they win the wild card game, they're winning the World Series. They're either going to lose that game in bad fashion,
no,
or
I
they're
don't
going to
think
win
so.
the World Series. This is
that
young,
Cleveland
hot team.
Hold on. That
Not
Cleveland
so fast,
pitching staff is nuts. That pitching staff is crazy with Kluber and Bauer. I want them to play in a series, be competitive, get experience, and move on from there. Who knows?
I do think, though, that if they win that wild card game, they can beat anybody that's left in the playoffs. I don't think that it's a foregone conclusion that any of those teams are leaps and bounds better than the Yanks. But I'm not going to go as far as when Anthony said that if they win that game that they're going to win.
I'm just telling you, when you're led by 2 young guys who seem to be on the roll that they're on, it's one of 2 things is going to happen. You're going to go to the playoffs and you're going to choke because you've never been there before, or you're going to be too ignorant to know any better or to be afraid, and you're going to destroy people. And that just seems like the path that they're on.
Would you vote for him for MVP, Nick?
I would think hard about it, and I think he'd be my second vote, but I would still give it to Mike Trout.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I mean, look, they've got a handful of games left. Like I said, that magic number to host that wild card game is 2. That could happen even probably as soon as tonight. By the time anybody's listening to this podcast, it might be over. But look, from my perspective, as I said earlier in the year, if they made the playoffs as a wild card, it's a victory. They're ahead of schedule in my opinion. And I think what you said, Nick, if they're able to get into that playoff series, whether they win or they lose, it's invaluable experience. To me, it's akin to the year that the Yanks lost in that divisional round to Seattle a million years ago, and then the next year they just went on the tear that began the dynasty. So you got to get some experience. You got to see what goes on, and if they do what Anthony says and they go on and they win the World Series, then holy shit, that's incredible. But if they don't and they get to play in that I guess it would be the second round series, whatever the hell it would be after the one wild card game, I think it's a victory. I think you have to look at the season as a success if they get past that game. I think it's a success even if they don't get past that game. I mean, this was not a team that everybody expected to do as well as they did. I mean, nobody expected Sabathia to have the year that he had.
Absolutely not.
I mean, Sabathia may have played his way into another contract as a Bartolo Colon type pitcher in some rotation if he wants to keep playing. I mean, he's not going to make $25 million, but it's not out of the realm of possibility somebody's going to pay him 10.
Right, and he's a great competitor, great guy having on the team in the locker room.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. The other big story that came up in New York sports over the last couple of days, the last thing I have, and then we'll go to last call.
I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home.
So
Let the rain
it didn't exactly end the way that Carmelo Anthony had seen it was going to end. All the way back in 2011 when he was claiming that he always wanted to be Bernard King. But he's gone. All right, so Carmelo Anthony is no longer a Knick. He got traded to Oklahoma City for a bag of balls that have weird mustaches. And Cantor to me is the big part of that deal. Both guys are on expiring deals, and they brought a second-round pick back. It's clear to me that in making the moves, first of all, it's probably the best move, the best deal that they were offered for Carmelo. Obviously, that's why they pulled the trigger on making the deal. But to me, it's clear that they're just clearing space. So after this year, they're going to have, Porzingis signed and Frank the Tank at point guard signed, and then we'll see where they go from there. But I know, Nick, you're not a Knick guy, so it really means little to you. But Anthony, what do you think Melo's legacy, quote unquote, his New York legacy is?
I'm going to say that his legacy is just a waste of time. He was a stat compiler here. He didn't have his best days as a pro here. I never got to see the guy that I prayed he would be when he got here. And what I saw in the year he got here before he started playing for the Knicks was a better team than it was after he got here. We had that one great year with Kidd and Sheed. And I think that was more Jason Kidd, which tells me that this guy was incapable of being a leader. He's not the guy that we were hoping and praying. You wrote a great piece, about the search for the next Ewing, and he was very clearly not that guy in any way, shape, or form.
Nick, as an outsider, what was your because he came dangerously close to being on the Nets way back when this whole trade talk started in 2011. As an outsider, how do you view Carmelo now, and how did you view him, at the time when the trade went down initially, like the first trade?
I view him now as someone who is kind of worried about scoring and scoring only, not really worried about playing two-way basketball. when the trade first went down, though, that first couple of years, I think they beat the Celtics in the playoff series.
They had 1 year where they
beat Garnett and Pearson. Right, they beat the big three in the playoff series. Is that not true? I'm pretty sure they did that.
They had 1 year where they made an actual playoff run, and that was with the team that Anthony was talking about with Rasheed Wallace and Jason Kidd.
Right. So when that team kind of compiled, I was like, I hate to say it, but this Knick team might be pretty decent. And then the Jeremy Lin experiment happened, and I was like, man, the Knicks are taking over the city. They're going to be competitive. And then they just kind of fell off the wagon, and I think it hit the low point this year when they had Rose and Noah, and they signed them to the big contracts. Again, legacy is going to be he liked to score a lot. He shot all the time, but he never played defense, and it wound up being his demise because the teams were never good.
As Anthony mentioned, I wrote an article from LoweandOutside.com about the search for the next Ewing, and I think the problem with Knicks fans is similar to what the problem is with Jet fans. And that's we're constantly looking for that guy that's going to put the team on the back and is going to work harder than anybody else on the team. The problem, from my perspective, is I've never really seen a Jet do that, but I have seen a Knick do it. I saw Ewing do it. Ewing embodied everything that you would want out of a captain on any of your sports teams. So it's interesting to see, the fan base react to it. My perspective is we talked ourselves into Carmelo. We thought that Carmelo was we wanted him to be something that we all knew that he really wasn't. And at the time, we were grasping at straws to get a franchise player in, and we talked ourselves into the fact that he was a franchise guy. The biggest problem that Carmelo has is that he's not LeBron, and he's not Dwayne Wade, and he's not even Chris Paul. So he's very clearly the fourth banana on the banana boat. And New York fans, as they tend to do, they talk themselves into the fact that their guy is better than he really is. And the only time that I ever saw the best out of Carmelo Anthony was when he was playing on those Olympic teams, and he didn't have to be the guy, and he had everybody do the hard work for him, and he was there to clean up at the end. We got Brett joining us for the end of the show tonight.
Yeah, late appearance.
You missed our baseball talk. We're talking Carmelo Anthony.
Baseball's just around the corner, right?
Baseball's just around the corner.
The wild card game right around the corner.
We're talking Melo. My question that I threw to these two guys is, what do you think his New York legacy is?
I caught the tail end there, Jeff, but I don't know how much better I can say what you just said. I really think you hit the nail on the head with that. That you talked, Knick fans talked themselves in to Carmelo being a savior, and you needed that at the time. There was a lot of interest in LeBron coming to the Knicks and saving the Knicks, and that never happened. And it is unfortunate that somebody like Carmelo is not LeBron, but who is LeBron? So it's tough for people that don't have LeBron on their team, or if they don't have the Golden State Warriors, are kind of stuck in this purgatory of NBA. So you want your team to be exciting, and you get a guy with that kind of stature, and you start thinking this could be the guy. I personally never thought he was the guy. I was just unimpressed with what he did in Denver. I know he was, I know it was an aging Allen Iverson out there with him and an aging Chauncey Billups with him out there, but he was never able to take that team really anywhere. So I just kind of questioned from the start what kind of leader and superstar he was. You're so right about Olympic basketball when he doesn't have to be the guy. He's excellent. Like if you just want a guy to just bury shots and that's his only role on this team, and somebody else can facilitate and somebody else can be the playmaker, but he's just got to hit buckets, perfect role for Carmelo. But he's not a leader.
Which might be the perfect role for him where he is now. I mean,
it might be.
He's not going to have to facilitate. He's not even going to have to be the second option, because that's going to be George. The interesting thing to me with what you just said there is, the first coach he had in New York, and I wrote this in the article too, is he's the most offensive minded head coach in the history of basketball, right? And he wanted Carmelo to do what James Harden did last year, and Melo couldn't do it. And James Harden had an MVP-esque year. He lost to Russell Westbrook because Russell Westbrook had a statistical year that nobody's ever had in the history of basketball. Okay, so but that's what that player that we saw Harden be this year. That's what D'Antoni wanted Melo to be, and he just couldn't hack it. So the biggest skill set that Melo has is this offensive talent, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't do what we now saw Harden do. So it's interesting to me to watch this career kind of dwindle down to where we're at. I hope he does well in Oklahoma City, because I think, you know, he got a raw deal here for the last 2 years. I mean, he got paid handsomely, but anybody that had to play under that Phil Jackson regime got a raw deal here in New York.
I think so. I think that's a good way to sum it up. I did have one question. I didn't want to bring it up, but I'm glad I jumped on at the very end.
Yeah.
Do any of you guys know what Porzingis' contract is like how many years he has left, what that's on?
He's very under control is what I know.
Okay, because I was
second.
All right, I was thinking the other day, I started thinking, you know, once the news broke that, you know, Melo was traded, I started thinking to myself, I was like, all right, they're not going to be very good this year, right? I think that's expected.
I think they're going to be okay.
All right.
Maybe I'm crazy. I mean, they're not going to be a 50-win team, but I don't think they're going to be any worse than they were the last couple of years. Like, I don't.
Yes. No, I totally agree with that. I don't think they're going to be any worse than they were. I think I would be a little fearful, and I want to know, that's basically my question to you, Jeff, and anybody else. Well, Nikki, you're a Net fan, so are you fearful of a talent like Porzingis sticking around? Now, this guy's already skipped his exit interview, and we can put a lot of stuff on Phil Jackson for the last couple of years. He's already shown signs of malcontent or discontent? I don't know what the word is. He's shown signs of being upset and frustrated in New York. So now he's going to stick around for 2 more years and watch this thing rebuild and not really go anywhere around him. Are you guys afraid of losing Porzingis? Now, I didn't know his contract says, so if he's good for like the next 4 or 5 years, and this probably isn't, well, it's like the next 2 years, are you scared of him being like, get me out of here?
Here's his contract status, and then I'll let those guys answer. I'll let Anthony answer specifically too, because he's a Knick guy. He's under control this year, 27-18 for $4.5 million.
Yeah, great value.
2018-19, there's a team option for 5.7.
Okay.
And then there's a qualifying offer, so he's essentially a restricted free.
Restricted, right? Which somebody else can match or out. I don't know how that.
Right. In 2019-20, so he's legitimately under a very manageable contract for the next 3 years, and then that 2020-2021 year is when you'd actually have to start legitimately paying him.
Okay, 3 isn't so bad. I was more worried about 2 years, because I don't know if you can get it up and running in time in 2 years for him to want to stick around.
You have that fear, Ant, that he would bail?
My big fear on him, I could see him getting frustrated and bailing. My main concern being that they don't do anything to make the team better around him. But I think getting rid of Phil Jackson is a help in keeping him.
My bigger fear is that he's not the real deal.
I don't think you've really gotten signs of that. I'd be happy as a Knick fan of him. Is he, Dirk Nowitzki? That's a pretty tall order to live up to. But can you build around him? I think so. From what I've seen,
18-10 is not a franchise player.
No, but it's a really nice piece.
It is. But if his ceiling is 18-10, there's a lot of guys that are 18-10 in the league.
Sure.
So you got to be, in my estimation, you got to be, in the 22 and 12 range if you have his ability. So
and he could, but he's still super young, like he's still, totally. And he's got time. Like sometimes we're spoiled, especially in New York. Like Aaron Judge, how many rookies come along? None actually come along and hit 50 home runs in their first season. Like sometimes we kind of want to put them up on that pedestal right away and be like, well, you need to be here. It's like, let him have time to grow and get into his body and adjust to the league. And he's getting there. So you just want to keep seeing progression out of him. Yeah. And I'd be more worried if I stop seeing progression.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think he's more than a 10 rebound a game guy, but I could see him developing into a 23, 24 point player a game guy.
The only problem with that is we just dealt away a 23, 24-point player a game guy that was a one-way player. So if Porzingis can develop a defensive mindset that's different than what Melo had, then we're in good shape. Hopefully the first couple of years of his career, Melo didn't rub off too much on him as far as being a one-way player.
Hey, he's up on defense, buddy. You make your money with the points.
Oh my God, you sound like J.R. Smith. We asked this question, Brett, and then I'll go to last call. Just because you had mentioned Judge. We're not even going to discuss Rookie of the Year, but if you had an MVP vote, would you vote for Judge?
Yes, but I'm totally biased, and I admit that I'm biased in that. But I would absolutely vote for Aaron Judge. National League's a lot tougher. I think there's a lot of players, but I what am I going to say? No, like that's my guy right now. So I'm voting for him.
Hang on, bartender. Give me one more of those scotch and peppers. I got a case of squirts, but I still want to drink.
A last call for alcohol. So what you need? One bourbon, one scotch, one beer.
All right, we're going long tonight, boys. This was a long one. It was a nice spirited discussion on a number of topics. Let's go to last call. We'll start with Anthony. We'll go to Brett, and then we'll close out with Nick. Anything that we have not discussed yet tonight that you'd like to bring up, Ant?
No, just keep an eye out for as we said before, the Jets blowing their shot at Darnold within the next 3 weeks.
That's good. That means Mayfield will be there. Nick? I know. Brett, sorry.
Did you guys talk about the possibility of D Wade? Well, not the possibility, but it looks like D Wade is signing with the Cavs.
He did.
Okay. Well, fantastic. So, guys, it looks like D Wade might be signing with the Cavs. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have much to contribute on that, but I'm glad I got to hop on for the last couple minutes.
Nicky, what do you got?
My two winter teams, the Devils and Nets, both have hit rock bottom last season. They both finished dead last in the Eastern Conference, the two worst seasons I've ever seen them have. For the first time, I'm seeing both franchises make the right moves, and I think they're building for the future. I'm excited for about 3 or 4 years from now what they're going to become.
Did you see the Devils pour in 8 goals last night?
We started the show talking about who cares about the national anthem. Apparently, DirecTV cares about the national anthem.
I saw that.
So much so that they are offering Sunday ticket refunds for those people that are disenchanted with the NFL because of the national anthem nonsense. So
you mean those like 62-year-old guys in Oklahoma that don't want DirecTV anymore?
Yep. And then
I want my money back.
The last one
They're taking a knee. I'll give her my cane to the knee.
The last one I have is in reference to something else that was in Who Cares. We got an update from Rick Pitino, boys.
Complete shock.
Rick Pitino's in complete shock.
Oh.
What an asshole.
So those 12 hookers that he brought for the recruits? This guy, what a jerk off he is.
Find us on loweandoutside.com. You can share away all of our information there. You'll find all sorts of fun articles that you can take a look there. We got some beer reviews by Bubs here and by Nicky that you can check out. And Anthony's butt fumbling blog will continue, I'm assuming, this week, although he got a win. So we'll be interested to see how he phrases some of that stuff. Find us on all social media too, Low Outside Sport. Thank you for taking the time, everybody, and until next week, we'll catch you there.
Desperandum, dear lady, across the desert lies the promised land. Hi, Mrs. Goop. Adieu, auf Wiedersehen, Gesundheit, farewell.
Fare thee well to you, my own true love. River Mercy, fare thee well. I am bound for California, a place that I know right well. So fare thee well, my own true love. When I return united we will be. It's not the leaving of Liverpool that's grieving me, but my darling, when I think of thee.